أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء المرسلين حبيب الله العالمين أبو القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. I'd like to begin my lecture today, inshallah. This short lecture that I'm not going to take too much time of, by congratulating you all on the birth of Abu Abdullah Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Imam Sajjad, Ali ibn al-Hussein alayhi salam, and Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam, who are three of the important characters and figures in the Battle of Karbala that we commemorate each year. So these three figures that we have are characters that we commemorate in Islam in general, as well as specifically in Shia. And these are three characters that we should try to understand even better and not try to keep within ourselves, within the Shia. But we should have people, all kinds of people, to understand the characteristics of these three figures, to be able to learn them better and try to understand their values and what they stood for. So, their births are on this blessed month, which is the month of Sha'ban. And they are consecutively on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of Sha'ban. And Sha'ban is a month in which Allah takes this word, sha'aba, to mean basically to spread or to split. And we can say this is a time in which they're scattered. Allah's bounties are scattered upon us. And this is a month that, unfortunately, many of the times we understand that it's been neglected. We see that many people put that importance on the month of Rajab, and they take a lot of time to do their ibadah, and they take a lot of time to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this month, and then in Ramadan. So we see that in the month of Ramadan, of course, we bring our spirituality back up to a point in which we're close to Allah again. So what happens to this time in between? And this month is the month of Sha'ban. And unfortunately, we don't put as much importance into it because of the fact that it's sandwiched between two very important times for us. But this is a month in which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we have many hadiths that the Holy Prophet said that this is my month. This is the month of the Holy Prophet. And we should not lose this kind of opportunity that we have, because Sha'ban is packed with opportunities for us to maximize our good deeds and for us to get closer to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and to his Ahlul Bayt. So these are ways that we can try to use them this month in which Allah's door is open for us. His mercy and His ni'mah are bountiful upon us upon this month. So we should try to do good deeds and try to receive these bounties that Allah has said that He's given to us. So this is a month of ibadah that we should have to prepare ourselves for the month of Ramadan. Because we can't just change our state of spirituality just like that. It's not easy to just go from here to here. We have to try to set ourselves to slowly build it up. And this is what the month of Sha'ban should be used for. That kind of ramp that we should use to try to get to ourselves into that maximum spirituality in the month of Ramadan. Right? You don't go from the 30th of Sha'ban or the last day, 29th of Sha'ban, in a very low spiritual level to doing your ibadah and getting close to Allah in just one day. So let's try to use this kind of push that boulder to have it started moving in this month. And we start doing our ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so we can get ready for that month of Ramadan in which we get to our peak and to our absolute maximum point. And of course, today I want to spend most of my time to discuss one of these three figures that I said before. As we said, we had Imam Hussein alayhi salam and Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam. But tonight, I want to try to take a bit more of your attention to Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein, Imam Zain Al Abideen alayhi salam. And I want to discuss the qualities. And I don't want to go into a biography because there are many specific dates that, of course, once we leave the center, we forget them, right? We don't know those specific times, but I want to try to get this idea in our head to understand the issues of the Imam at the time. And the biggest gift that the Imam Zain Al Abideen has given to us, alayhi salam. He's given us a beautiful gift, so let's continue and let's understand what it is. So, this is the month of his birth on the 5th of Sha'ban, and that is the event that we mark today. So, he has many famous different types of honorific titles, such as Imam Zain Al Abideen, as we all know. We know him as Sayyid al-Sajjadin. And we know him, of course, as Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. So these different names, what do they mean? Zain Al Abideen, meaning the adornments of the worshippers. Sayyid al-Sajjadin, the leader of those who prostrate, the prostrators, and the one who prostrates excessively. It's al-Sajjad. So we do have something in regards to Imam Sajjad, and which his son Imam Baqir alayhi salam says, my father Ali ibn Hussein would perform sajda whenever he remembered a favor of Allah. He would do sajda whenever he would recite an ayah from the Quran that contains sajda in it. And whenever Allah could repel any evil from him that he was afraid of, or the plotting of any evil person, he would do sajda. And whether he could finish any obligatory prayer, he would do sajda. And whenever he would be successful in reconciling two people, he could do sajda. There was a mark of sajda on all the places of his body that touched the ground upon sajda. And hence he was known as al-Sajjad. So there's a complete importance that's given to the sajda from this imam that we can understand. Of course, all the imams had already done this, but this imam specifically was noticed for this. And I can give a whole hour long discussing that, the sawab and the bounties that we can get from a sajda. But I don't want to take too much time, and I want to move on to our next point, which is the issues of the imam at the time. Imam Zain Al Abideen alayhi salam had many different issues at his time, and he was present on the plains of Karbala during the time in which his whole family and those that were close to him were martyred. But I don't want to pay attention to that specifically, but rather what happened after this, and what was the situation that the imam was put in. Because after, at the age of 22, during this event, the imam took that leadership. He took that role for himself. And he was the leader of the Muslimin. He was the leader of all of mankind now. So he had to become that pillar for the women there specifically. Those that were taken from the plains of Karbala all the way to Sham. And they were taken out there, and there were people along those streets that would laugh at them, and they would try to disgrace the Ahlul Bayt and those who were there on Karbala, the women there. But the imam had showed these people what wrong actions that they did. He was able to show them and embarrass Yazid and his people in his own palace with his own wazirs, with his own people. He was able to embarrass him by showing him that this is us, the Ahlul Bayt, that you have martyred. This is not a political situation in which you're, for example, martyring any kind of dissident, but rather this is the grandson of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this kind of awakening is shown, and the imam always chooses the correct words in the way that he shows the people the situation at the time, and he opens the eyes of the population to the crimes that happened in Karbala. And everything that we have from Karbala are that every kind of event that is told is through these people. They've told the event of Karbala, because if not, then the tragedy of Karbala would be forgotten forever. And it would not be in our minds anymore if it wasn't for Imam Zain Al Abideen alayhi salam to be able to tell these stories of the events. So now we should look at the state of the Muslim Ummah at this time, after this. After this event and after the events of Mukhtar, we see that the Ummah is in disarray, and we see that there is a state of shock among everyone. And we can see specifically within the Shia, the community has been completely destroyed. There were people that were supposed to go with Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, especially in Kufa, who were supposed to support him. And we can see that in the end, there's only 72 people who are within his army. So we see that at this time, there's this sense of corruption, this sense of materialism, and sin which is in the society, and this is prevalent across all of society. And the cities of Mecca and Medina were drowning in sin at this time. This was a society that became prevalent in wrongdoings, prevalent in corruption. So the imam takes the reins of imamah upon this time. And there is complete disregard for the Islamic teachings at this time. And it would be said that the people of the Quraysh used to take pleasure in listening to haram music and songs in these holy cities. So this is the context that the imam begins his imamah upon. And we need to understand this to try to understand how the imam tackles these kind of political issues and the issues within the ummah at the time. So he tirelessly worked upon improving the situation. And the imam knew that the ideal solution of establishing a just Islamic society could not happen in such a short term. But rather, this is a long-term thinking that we have to do to understand what he wanted to do, to plan for the long term. And this is not something that many of us even do today, right? We're always very short-term focused. We want to see what we can do within the first year or so. But the Imam, he understood that this is not something that we should think of in the very short to be able to help the people, but rather he set this kind of precedent to try to get those people to purify themselves and understand the teachings of Ahlul Bayt at the time. And we can see that the scholars tell us that there were three main points that he wanted to work on, and his three main goals. One of them being he wanted to fix the thinking of the people, to give them a pure Islamic outlook towards life and society. And this included reiterating the people's beliefs in Islam and showing them the importance of spiritual purification and obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as we said, their thinking has been completely changed at this time. So he wants to try to change them back into the Islamic beliefs. The second is that he introduces the Ahlul Bayt to the common people who have been fed with this fabricated hadith, and they've been fed with this propaganda in a way that they have a complete incorrect perspective and different incorrect view on the situations. And this is something that even I today look into a lot. And this is something that we need to pay a lot of attention to ourselves. And it's a topic that unfortunately we don't pay attention to much, but critical thinking at a time in which propaganda, in a time where there are false reports coming out all the time. And this is something that the Imam had to tackle. 1300 to 1400 years ago, we had the Imam tackling issues such as propaganda, such as misinformation. And we need to try to take that ourselves and try to understand how we can tackle it ourselves. Because it was very prevalent in the times of the Bani Umayyah that they would make up different propaganda and they would make up different reports. And we see, unfortunately, there are a group of people, of Muslims, that believe that Yazid had the right to do what he did in Karbala. Based on these reports, based on these propaganda, we still have groups that believe in such a concept. So we see that this is not something that is a faraway view, something that only happened a while ago, but rather it has a contemporary and a view that we can understand even today. So the third would be that he built up and he trained an organized network of Shias that would be the basis of future activities that the Imams would carry out. So he started building that network, as he knew that the people of the Bani Umayyah, those that were in charge, the Khilafah, they were trying to keep him under chains. So he created that network that was then used later on. So these are three goals that cannot be done in a year or so. But these are goals that the Imam had to spend his whole lifetime, 35 years, to try to implement. And in order to fulfill these kind of goals that the Imam had, he used many different tactics. We can see that one of the primary methods that he would use was to spread the pure Islamic teachings in the form of the dua, the supplications, right? So this was in a way that he would use the dua as a way of advice. For example, in a manner that would not be seen as political, he would discuss the concept of imamah. And he would discuss that imamah is a fundamental Islamic belief, that the Muslims, upon being questioned in the grave, they will have to answer to that, right? That they would have to tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment that who was their imam and who was their leader at the time. Would they be able to say that the Bani Umayyah were the people who were supposed to be the leaders of them? So clearly not. This is something that the imam would do to be able to plant the kind of seed in doubt for them. And we have famous compilations and du'as, of course, of the imam. And tonight I want to see and to discuss these gifts that the imam has given to us, and these supplications specifically, because this is something that we have from the imam even today. And that is the Sahifa al-Sajjadiyya. And this is full of Islamic teachings in regards to our beliefs, our culture, our society, our politics, as well as our own practical rulings. These are all passed down to us through these supplications, through these du'as that the imam would give. So we should try to reflect upon the Sahifa al-Sajjadiyya, because when he implemented that, or he created this book, he did not create these supplications just to be read and not pondered upon. He brought many different meanings behind these verses, behind these sayings, behind these supplications. And we need to try to implement those into our own lives. And as we know, this is basically a book of Psalms. As we know that the Christians have a book called the Psalms of David. And the Sahifa al-Sajjadiyya is like that Psalms of the Shia. This is a way for us to build a connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through dua. One of our best ways that we can connect, and the Imam saw that. And upon seeing that in that stage, he was able to create that Sahifa al-Sajjadiyya. And we don't really understand the kind of gift that this Sahifa Sajjadiyya gives to us. That this is something that came straight from our Imam. This is straight from the Ahlul Bayt, without any kind of ta'rif, without any kind of changes. And I want you guys to ask yourself, have you been able to open that Sahifa Sajjadiyya? Have you been able to look into that book and try to read the supplications and ponder upon what these supplications mean? This is one of the saddest tragedies that we have in our own life, that we don't implement and we don't read these kind of gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Imam Zain Al Abideen has given to us. So these are lessons that we want to try to implement into our own life. Now, let's see here. So this is how Imam Zain Al Abideen is able to try to achieve his goals. So Imam Zain Al Abideen knows that the people in Mecca, the people in Medina, the people in Kufa are all in a state of disarray, and they've come to a point in which they've martyred the grandson of the Holy Prophet. So they need to build that connection again, and he builds that through the Sahifa Sajjadiyya. And if we truly utilize this hidden treasure that we have, we can take all of the ni'mah and all of the wonders and bounties that it bestows upon us. And I want to use an example for the Sahifa Sajjadiyya to try to show you what we can use it. So when I was studying for this, or I was preparing for this, there was a very good example that I read. Think of Sahifa Sajjadiyya as a medicine in your medicine cabinet. That this is a kind of spiritual medicine for us, right? So when we go through our medicine cabinet, we try to find a cure for the specific situations we have. Whether that be if we have a stomach ache, whether if we have a headache or so, we kind of have a lot of different issues, right? And we want to have an ailment for that. So this book can be used as that kind of medicine cabinet for us, to find ourselves in a spiritual state in which we can boost ourselves. As we said, that's what we want to do. We want to boost our spiritual state because we find ourselves very low sometimes, spiritually. So if you find yourself in the midst of making some tough decisions, you can read the supplications, and in worrisome tasks, this is a supplication that the Imam has, in worrisome tasks. If you have committed a sin and feel ashamed of it, you can read the supplication on wrongdoing. Any spiritual state that you find yourself in has its corresponding supplications. These are some examples. We have sickness, supplications in sickness, supplication in parents, in children, in good outcomes, if we're faced with some worrisome tasks. When hostility is shown to us, when something makes us sorrowful. These are just 7 that I've told you upon many of the different supplications that we have. So these are all the kind of medicine that we can use. And there are different times for us that we have different types of situations. And we can find these specific supplications in Sahifa Sajjadiyya. So I want you guys tonight, I want to give you a kind of homework tonight. To be able to go home tonight and try to look at Sahifa Sajjadiyya. If you have it physically, you can open that book and look into it. And look at the different types of supplications we have. Whether it be the supplication for worry sometimes or dealing with any issues, there are different supplications that we do have. So open that tonight or look it up online and look through the different table of contexts that it has and try to find one that fits your specific need. Because I'm sure tonight, if you look into that Sahifa Sajjadiyya, you'll find one that you can use tonight to fix upon yourself. Because we all have different levels of spirituality. And I'm for sure we have the Sahifa Sajjadiyya to give us a sense of that spirituality, to be able to raise it. So we have other supplications for self-improvement, whether let's say you don't have any issues. And this is Makarim al-Akhlaq. And this is one of the best supplications we have. The supplication for noble moral traits. So there are also other short supplications for each day of the week. So I want you guys to look into that tonight and try to understand the depth of this that we can try to learn from. And us Shia Muslims, we're given such knowledge and we're giving so many books from our Imams, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is our duty now to make the best use of these, that they don't sit in our shelves, but rather we take these books such as the Holy Quran, such as the Nahj al-Balagha, such as the Sahifa Sajjadiyya, and we access this knowledge that the Imams have left for us so that we're able to implement that into our own daily lives, to regularly study this vast Islamic knowledge which is within our own fingertips. This will truly solve a lot of our problems, and many of the problems we have today can be answered by these. So that is the way in which we can understand the Ahlul Bayt and the Quran, through these ways, and that we can get closer to Him. And that's how we want to try to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end of the day. So I want to end off tonight by again wishing you the best on this blessed night, on the birth of two of our Imams, Imam Zain and Imam Zain Al Abideen alayhim salam, and Hazrat Abbas. And inshallah, we can try to implement all of these teachings that they have in our own lives. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ijwan salawat.